Why hello, I'm Rav from CraftandHue and welcome back to episode 4 of the Bambu Studio series. If you've ever looked at your print and thought, this is good, but could I make it better? This episode's for you. Today, we're going to be using flow dynamic calibration and flow rate calibration in Bambu Studios to really dial in surface finishes. The filament we're going to be using is Bambu Lab PLA Blue-Gray. Before we jump into flow calibration, I'd like to do a quick baseline check to see how the filament behaves straight out of the box. I'll be using a calibration cube and a temperature tower that I've designed. I'll also print a set of primitive shapes directly from Bambu Studios just to see how the filament behaves across different geometries. Alongside that, I'll be printing the Lunar Ridge Vase, a real-world check to see how the surface finish looks on an actual decorative print. I've uploaded the cube and temperature tower to MakerWorld with the links in the description so you guys can use it if you want to. I started with the calibration cube. I printed two versions, a small one, a large one, just to see if scaling the part had a noticeable impact on the print. In both cases, the walls printed cleanly, with the X and Y faces looking consistent, and there was no obvious issues. That tells me the extrusion and motion are behaving as expected before calibration. Next up is the temperature tower. For this one, I'm using a custom G-code to control the temperature changes at specific layers. In Bambu Studios, you're going to be doing this by switching to preview, using the slider on the right-hand side, move it down to the layer that requires the temperature, and then right-click and select Custom G-code. The command you need to type is M104S, target temperature. The M104 tells the printer to set the hot end temperature, and the S is the temperature value in degrees Celsius. I'm uploading a ready-made profile with this already set up, but if you want to do it manually, there are written instructions on MakersWorld. Next up are primitive shapes. These were printed directly from Bambu Studios using the built-in primitive objects. I used a square, cylinder, a cone, and I used a double-tier rhomboid cylinder. I used these because they show how the filament behaves across straight lines, curves, and tapers. Everything printed cleanly and with no obvious extrusion issues, which tells me we've got a solid baseline before calibration. The final baseline print is the Lunar Ridge Vase. This works well as a real-world test because it combines two surface types, a smooth body and a ridged upper section. The smooth lower section makes it easy to spot any inconsistencies in the flow or layer finish, while the top ridge highlights how well the details are being defined. Straight out of the box, the print already looks very clean, the layer lines are consistent overall, and the finish is smooth. This makes it a great candidate for flow calibration. We're looking to refine the surface finish even further rather than fix any major issues. With the baseline prints looking solid, the first calibration I want to run is the flow dynamic calibration. In Bambu Studio, you'll find this by clicking calibration in the top menu and selecting flow dynamic. This calibration looks at how filament behaves while the printer is moving, things like acceleration, deceleration, and pressure changes inside the nozzle. On fast printers like the Bambu Lab P1S, this plays a big role in how clean your walls and details end up looking. Bambu Studios also makes it clear that this isn't something you need to run all the time. It's mainly worth doing when you're introducing a new filament, changing material or brand, replacing a nozzle, or making changes to the temperature. Right now we're going to run the calibration. So first we click on manual calibration. Here you're going to see printer settings. We're first going to check if the build plate is correct. Our build plate is a textured PEI plate. Next we check the nozzle diameter. Ours is 0.4, so this is correct. Then we're going to select the filament we want to calibrate. We're going to be choosing the Bambu Lab PLA Blue-Gray. We're going to leave the calibration method as line. The rest of the settings stay as they are. Once everything looks correct, we're going to click the green calibration box for everything to get started. The straight line test in manual flow dynamic calibration, it takes around 8 minutes to run. And once it's started, there's nothing left for you to do until the print is completed. Once the print is completed, have a look at the results on the build plate. You're looking for a line with the most uniform thickness and cleanest appearance. In our case, that was 0.01. Once you've identified your value, you go back to Bambu Studios, click Next, type in the value, in our case 0.01, and then click Finish, and that completes the flow dynamic test. Flow rate calibration comes into play after flow dynamic. Even if the motion is dialed in, you can still see issues like over extrusion, under extrusion, rough surfaces, or prints that just don't feel as solid as they should. Flow rate calibration fine-tunes how much filament is actually being extruded, helping improve wall thickness, surface quality, and overall strength. With that said, Bambu Lab printers and official Bambu Lab filament, the default flow settings are usually very close, so this step is normally about refinement rather than fixing any major issues. To run flow rate calibration, click on the manual calibration, and just like before, quickly check your settings, making sure the build plate is correct, the nozzle diameter is set properly, and the filament you want to calibrate is selected. In our case, everything stays the same as the previous calibration. Once you're happy with the setup, click on Calibrate. The printer will now start printing calibration 1. Once it's finished, take a look at the build plate and find the section that looks the most seamless and has the smoothest surface finish. In Bambu Studio, you then enter the number that corresponds to that section. In our case, the best result was number 5. Before clicking Calibrate, make sure you remove the print and give it a quick clean, and then reinstall build plate, as once you click Calibrate, the print will start immediately to test number 2. Once calibration 2 is complete, take another look at the build plate and find the section that looks the most seamless and the smoothest surface finish. In Bambu Studio, enter that number that corresponds to that section. In our case, the best result was -3. At this stage, you can also rename the preset if you want. I'm going to leave mine as default and then click on the finish to complete. With both flow dynamic and flow rate calibration complete, I reprinted the same models to see what, if anything, had changed. I started with the calibration cube and then moved on to the shapes, followed by the lunar ridged vase, using the same settings as before. To me, the walls feel smoother, transitions were cleaner, and the overall surface finish just felt more consistent. I also did a blind test with Angela, and her feedback was really interesting. She said the original prints weren't bad at all, but the calibrated ones simply felt better in hand, even though visually they looked very similar. That's exactly what this type of calibration is about. Subtle refinement rather than dramatic visual change. That wraps up episode 4 of the Bambu Studio series. The key takeaway here is that the default Bambu Labs profile already gets you very close. Flow dynamics and flow rate calibration aren't about fixing bad prints, they're about refining the finish and making things feel more consistent. In a future episode, it could be interesting to test a filament that hasn't got a default profile in Bambu Studios and see how much a difference the calibration makes in that case. Let me know in the comments if that's something you guys would like to see, and if you have a recommendation of filament we can try out. I will see you guys next time.